It's Ash from Super Videos, back for another video for Season 10 of The Walking Dead. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a new teaser that they released from the bonus episodes of Season 10. And also, we're going to take a look at 3 new sneak peeks that they released from the very first bonus episode, Season 10, Episode 17, called Home Sweet Home. So stick around, we'll be right back to break it all down. Alright, as always, before we get into this, if you are not a subscriber and enjoyed the content by the end, make sure to subscribe to join our community. Also, don't forget to share and smash the like button and press the bell to be notified when we upload. Now, the teaser we're going to look at is actually a combination of one of the teasers and a behind the scene look at the Season 10 bonus bundle. I just went through that and only took the scenes from the actual episode that was in that behind the scenes look. They also, like I said, released 3 new sneak peeks which we're gonna look at. All of them feature Maggie, which is very interesting. We knew that the very first episode is gonna be heavily concentrated towards Maggie, and I think these 3 sneak peeks give us a good understanding of what we might see in terms of the story in this episode. But let's go through the teaser and the behind the scene teaser and break it down first. Now, before we jump into it, there was also some dialogue that came with this teaser as a voiceover, but we've covered that in other trailers and teaser breakdowns, so because of that, I'm not going to include those here anymore. So this first shot we have is actually this shot of Daryl walking along a train track. We've seen a picture of this scene already. Now, when I talked about that picture in my other video, I mentioned that it was Daryl in a flashback scene, but I was wrong there. This is actually most likely a current timeline scene because Daryl is wearing his new vest. That's the new vest that was designed for him in a way by Judith in Season 10. Then we have this shot, which is the continuation of the same scene, and then this one, which I think is connected. Daryl is still wearing his vest in this shot, and then we have this shot, which is Daryl on his motorcycle, but he's wearing something different, so it's a different time. Not a different timeline, but a different time. And then we have this shot of Daryl and Kelly together. This is most likely related to some of the sneak peeks that we're gonna look at, which is Maggie and her crew and Daryl and Kelly and others going on some sort of a mission. We'll talk a little bit more about that during the sneak peek breakdown of this video. Then we have this shot of Daryl and Maggie hiding behind the tree. Again, we'll touch on what they might be doing when we cover the sneak peek breakdown. And then we have this shot of Maggie, Kelly, and the others in the background, and this is actually related to this shot. We can actually see Maggie, Herschel, Daryl, and Kelly walking into the Alexandria safe zone. So those 2 scenes are connected, and that's connected to this shot right here. So we have Maggie and Herschel Jr. walking into the safe zone. Now, I think Maggie in this particular scene is just overwhelmed because Alexandria looks so different since the last time that she saw it. Now, what's interesting in the background, we can actually see a couple faces that we recognize. Nabila, Lydia, Gracie, and we have none other than Negan looking at Maggie and Herschel Jr. walk into the safe zone. This is pretty interesting, and I think for Negan, it's a lot to take in, to say the least. That actually connects to this shot right here, part of the same scene, but we have Negan looking at most likely Maggie and Herschel Jr. And then we have this shot of Maggie covering her ears as an explosion goes off behind her. And then this shot right here connected to the same scene. And then we have this shot of Maggie. They're around some sort of a storage unit area and they're clearing walkers. This was in some of the other teasers that we've seen, but also it's part of the sneak peek. Now, the previous shot, which was the explosion going off, and this shot right here, I think, is connected to the same storyline, which is a threat or a new villain group called the Reapers, which are after Maggie and the crew that she came with. We'll talk more about that when we cover the breakdown. And then we have this shot of Maggie talking to Daryl about the bad man, aka Negan, and what Herschel Jr. was asking Maggie about the bad man that killed his father. And then we have this shot of Negan. This is obviously from the opening minutes of Season 10, Episode 17, which is one of the sneak peeks we're going to cover, but this is when he comes face to face with Maggie for the very first time. And obviously their encounter is going to be short-lived because Judith is going to be there and Maggie's not gonna want to get into it with Negan right then and there. But then we have this shot of Lucille. Obviously, Lucille is Negan's wife before Negan turned into the Negan we know him today. But this is most likely prior to the outbreak. And also, this is most likely Lucille sitting at the dinner table with Negan himself. We saw a picture of Negan and Lucille together at the dinner table, which connects to this shot, I'm assuming. Then we have this awesome shot of Negan. He's cutting barbed wires from a fence, and obviously this is most likely going to connect to the shot that we saw in the other teasers where Negan was putting the same barbed wires around Lucille. Obviously taken directly from the comics and the Here's Negan storyline. Now what's very interesting is that they might actually be doing something different in the show in terms of what Negan was before the apocalypse, or what he was doing before the apocalypse. Of course, in the comics, before the apocalypse, Negan was a gym teacher. And we don't know necessarily if they're going to follow the same route in the show, but there's a possibility based on some of the stuff that we've seen that Negan may actually be a construction worker. Now obviously this could be him just walking into a construction site or any other location for that matter, but there's just something about some of the stuff that they released that leads me to think that maybe that's the direction they're going with it. And then we have this shot of Aaron, and then this shot, and then this shot of Gabriel. This is from the scene where they're surrounded by some walkers, and the one where Father Gabriel kills one of the walkers with a machete. That was in the other teaser. Now we have this shot of Gabriel sitting at a table with a new character who's going to be introduced named Maze, played by Robert Patrick, and he's going to cameo in the episode that's about Gabriel and Aaron's supply run. And then we have this shot of Maze. He pulls down his hood, and we can actually see that his face is all messed up. Now we've seen him in other teasers. It was a small, subtle glimpse at him, but we've seen him in the other teasers. But what's interesting is that I didn't even notice that he actually has a scar or a burn on his face. So that's extremely interesting. I'm very interested to know his backstory and how he connects to the story. I'm assuming it's not gonna end with him surviving. I'm assuming that the episode he's featured on will end up with him getting killed. Most likely Gabriel or Aaron kill him. I could be wrong, but that's the vibe I'm getting from it. And also, this definitely connects to the scenes that we've seen in the other teasers where we have Aaron with a gun pointed at his head, and one where we have Maze actually counting down from 3 to 1, and another one where Gabriel is holding a gun. So it seems like there's a Russian roulette situation going on, and Maze is actually threatening to kill either Gabriel or Aaron, or something along those lines. And then we have this shot, which is exactly where season 10 ended, season 10 episode 16, where Yumiko, Princess, Ezekiel, and Eugene are surrounded by Commonwealth soldiers. And then we have this shot of Princess inside a train cart where she's being kept prisoner. Now, if you remember, there was a table read that was released from this episode, and in that table read, they talked about how Princess is talking to Ezekiel through a crack in the train cart that she's put in. And that's it for this teaser that they released. Now we're going to take a look at the opening minute sneak peek, which features Maggie, Judith, and Negan. So the opening minutes start with Maggie throwing a knife and it hits this walker in the head. Then Maggie comes, grabs the knife and walks away, and then she starts talking to Judith. Judith says, "I could have gotten that far." And then Maggie says, "You are your mother's daughter." And then Judith says, "My dad's too." And I loved that. It was subtle, but I loved that reference to both Michonne and Rick at the same time. And then as they start walking, Maggie asks, "What did you tell RJ?" And I'm assuming they're talking about what she told RJ about Michonne. And then they get into a conversation about stars in the night sky and how it's the same stars no matter where you are and all of that, which I didn't include in this breakdown. There wasn't too much to it. It was pretty self-explanatory. But the point of that discussion was that Michonne is somewhere out there, and when she looks up into the night sky and sees the stars, it's the same exact stars that Judith and RJ and others will be looking at. And the same principle kind of goes with Maggie and Herschel Jr., because Maggie says, "I told Herschel Jr. the exact same thing." They hit the road where Lydia says this should do it. They're packing some stuff on a wagon. They drive off, and then as that happens, Negan is on the other side of the wagon. And this is where the Maggie Negan encounter comes from. And as was said in the early reviews, it only lasts a couple seconds, and it's absolutely right, it only lasts a couple seconds. And the thing that's disappointing about it is that everything that was said was in the teasers. So it's like, seriously? Anyway, Maggie looks at Negan, she's surprised and she wants to say something, but obviously Judith is there, so she doesn't say anything. Now, unlike what I thought, which is that Judith is gonna interrupt them, it seems like she doesn't necessarily interrupt them. She was just with Maggie, obviously. But this is like an awkward scene, but then Negan breaks the silence and says, "Hey, Maggie." Maggie continues to look at him, and then he says, "I didn't escape, if that's what you were thinking." And then Maggie still looks at him, says nothing, walks away, and then Negan says, "Well, shit." And then it's an awkward stare down, I guess, between Judith and Negan, and Maggie just walks away while Judith and Negan are looking at each other. And I'm assuming that this is gonna lead to the other scene that was in the other teasers where Negan actually winks at Judith. And that's it. That's the opening minutes. Nothing more to say about it. Now let's take a look at the other two sneak peeks that they released. The other sneak peek that they released is actually some sort of a cleanup that's happening around a storage unit. So we have Daryl, Maggie, Kelly, and others. They're around this kind of storage unit area, or an area that has a lot of containers, and they're trying to kill the walkers that are around the area. The walkers that are trying to get out from the container. Maggie comes, tries to hold them in, and then Daryl says, "Help Maggie." We can see Kelly in the background. Daryl comes, grabs the thing that he shot, and then in the voiceover, Maggie says, "Get to cover, I don't need help." And then we can see she's struggling a little bit, so it seems like even though Maggie's badass, she needs some help here. But then Daryl comes, helps her, but they still can't hold the walkers inside of the container, and that's where Elijah, or this new character in the Iron Mask, the ninja character I call him, comes in and pushes in, and that's when the walker's head kind of explodes, and that's pretty much it. That's the end of this second sneak peek that they released. And then the last sneak peek we're gonna look at is one where Maggie and Daryl come to find some place burned to the ground. And as we kind of read in the early reviews that was released, this is actually their safe house, or Maggie's safe house. And it seems like it was attacked by a group. We're gonna learn who that group is in a little bit, but Maggie looks around, she is concerned, she yells out Herschel's name, so it seems like Herschel was there and was kidnapped or taken away by this new group. Then they look around, and that's where Elijah comes in and hugs Maggie. And then we have them going out from some sort of an opening where they find some of their members burned and killed. And that's where this other new character says, "Must have followed us, Maggie. We were so damn careful. I don't know how, but..." And then it's them, they're out there referring to the group that attacked them and ambushed them. And then Maggie says, "We don't know that." And then the guy says, "2 of our people are dead, Maggie." And then Kelly looks at Maggie. Then he says, "Where the hell is everyone else? Fire's out. Why haven't they come back?" So the fire's out, so why haven't our people come back to the place? Which leads me to think that they might have been killed or kidnapped or something like that. But then he says it's the Reapers. Obviously the Reapers is the name of the group that must have attacked them. They're the group that actually attacked their old community. Kelly says, "What's a Reaper?" Maggie says, "People who attacked our home." And then the guy says they came out of nowhere, wiped out anything in their way. That gets Maggie to respond with "enough," so she doesn't want to hear any of that. Now what's interesting is that it seems like this new group called the Reapers are going to be some sort of a military style of group because of the way they're dressed, the way they attack their enemy. In one of the other pictures that was released, we had like a guy with a camouflage uniform behind Maggie, and I think that was a member of the Reapers. Also in another picture, Daryl was killing a walker who had a military uniform on, so he could have possibly been with the Reapers as well. In the teaser that we looked at, there was an explosion that went off. That could have been done by the Reapers as well. And then Maggie says we need to get our heads on straight, find our people, find my son. So obviously it seems like the Reapers took her son away. So it's going to be interesting to see whether they can find Herschel Jr. and what's going to happen there. Now obviously we did see earlier on that Maggie was walking into the safe zone with Herschel Jr. So this must have happened afterwards. But that's pretty much it. That's everything that was released in these teasers and the sneak peeks. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to share and smash the like button. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe to join our community. And don't forget to press the bell to be notified when we upload. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.